Please welcome Mr. K.V. Chaudhary.
Dr. Justice Arijit Pasayat ji, my Guru and well-wisher, Shri Satyamurthy ji, other distinguished persons on the dais and distinguished friends here in the... It requires a lot of courage to speak before the stalwarts sitting here. There are at least, I think I can recognize half a dozen people who were in the CBI for long years. Of course, not to mention about Arijit Pasayat ji and the international expertise. But still, I will make a small attempt. The three things which are part of this conference of these 2 days, the three words which are very dear to the Commission's heart. One is prevention, second is skill enhancement, third is financial fraud. And I think each one of them can go on for days. But anyway, given the topic, I will deal with prevention and skill management a little bit, what the Commission is trying to do, and why the Commission felt that it is necessary to do so. Today, in the last 2 years or so, the banks have been in the news, mostly for wrong reasons. And banks have lost a lot of money. Banks lost means the nation lost a lot of money, and the public in turn lost a lot of money. And banks have been in a bad light. When you look at this, what was the reason for this? Yes, there are a few frauds. There are probably many frauds. Some larger ones, probably they are very well-planned ones. There are some smaller ones, may not be that well-planned, but still they are frauds. But the interesting thing is, if you look at the statistics of the Reserve Bank of India, of course I am told they are treated as confidential, they are not in public domain. It only happened that when one of the deputy governors spoke in a meeting of the bankers in Bombay probably, he quoted some statistics. While the public sector banks have probably more than 60% of the business in the banking sector, the number of frauds quoted as per the RBI statistics at that point of time, they were less than 20%. The new generation private sector banks and the foreign banks, which relatively had lesser percentage-wise number of cases, business, they had a larger, both number-wise and percentage-wise of frauds. I'm only saying this to clarify that there is no uniform understanding of what constitutes a fraud. The RBI's guideline declare a certain categories of misdemeanors or things which happen to be declared as a fraud. Let's assume that the banks follow that and declare a case as a fraud. So what is the consequence outside the bank? That once you declare the account as a fraud, probably there are some norms for provisioning the debt. But does it ipso facto become a case for the CBI or an economic offences wing to investigate the matter? I think it's not. One needs to make a reference to it. So there is a difference in understanding in what is a fraud as per RBI, what is a fraud as per the management itself, what is a fraud according to the CBI or any investigating agency. The investigating agency would like to see it from the point of view of violation of a particular enactment, be it a PC Act or be it a IPC offense or some violation of a banking norm, and which has a criminality attached to it. So that being the case, the next question arises, in most of the frauds, is the banker the fraudster or is he the victim? Is the banker the fraudster or the victim? By and large, with utmost respect to media and the public, they think that bankers are the fraudsters. They are responsible for the fraud. I have a different view. I am not saying that all the cases the banks are innocent, or all the cases the banks are automatically the people responsible for the fraud. Most of us read in the newspaper, I don't want to take the name, of a bank in Delhi which remitted more than 5,000 crores abroad towards advance money for imports to be made. The policy of the government permitted people with a certain criteria to remit money abroad for imports to be made. This is an advance for purchase. Domestically also you do. There's a commodity in short supply, or you give an advance, you get a better discount, you give the money in advance. So this particular branch remitted more than 5,000 crores. And the manager was very happy because on 5,000 crores remittance, I don't know exactly what is the commission they charge. Even if you assume that about 1% is the commission earned by the bank, a small branch in a residential area made a 50 crore profit in 1 year. So I am sure the bank higher authorities also would have complimented him before the fraud itself came out. Then later it came to be known that the amount got remitted through accounts which didn't have a proper identification mechanism, what you call popularly as KYC. There was no proper KYC. The money came from some such similar non-KYC accounts and the money got exported. Now, why the money got exported, whether it came back, whether there was a recycling, that's a separate part of the story. But in this instance, the poor manager, the poorer assistant manager, who were working day in and day out to handle this kind of a volume of work which they had never seen, they probably were acting bona fide, thinking that these were remittances, and if you do the remittances in a time when the business is tough, you are earning a 1% commission or a 2% commission. Now, the question, as I said, I put it back again, is the banker there a fraudster? Yes, he could have probably knowingly, unknowingly been a part of the crime, but was there a contemplation on his part? Is one aspect. So, in a number of other cases also in the banks, you would find, if not identical, but similar situations where banker thinks he acted bona fide. He acted in the interest of the bank, not in his own interest also, but still the transaction failed. Another example, the LCs, where people go and deliver LC. There is a prescribed procedure, go through the probably the mail procedure, etc. But there are also exceptions which are provided in the rule which say that you can send across, and then when he takes the LC, somebody is sitting in the manager's chair, and as we were just joking, it is very difficult to prove who you are. Somebody is sitting in the chair and there is a board, KV Chaudhary, he comes and brings the paper, I sign it and give it, he takes it back, and this fellow is an imposter there and he is signed. And the LC got kind of honored. So, several things like this keep happening, and these are happening mainly because there is no standard operating procedure. That's what we are coming to the next aspect of how do you prevent. See, one example I will give you, the banks are to treat a loan as a non-performing asset if for 90 days there is no payment into the account. It became overdue. So the bankers, either knowingly or unknowingly, or to show a better result or better APR for himself, etc., many of them, what they did was, they were transferring an amount from a suspense account or a wealthy HNI's account for a day, and then you reverse it back. So you just crossed the bridge on 30th of September, let us say. Again on 31st of December, by God's grace, if the account became normal, fine. Most probably it didn't become. So you do a little more of it next time, because last time you didn't get caught. So somebody did it a second time, and then again it was reversed. So a situation arises, then it is no longer manageable. So when a few things like this were detected, after it became a kind of a vigilance case. Now we said, look here, this seems to be a practice. You run on your system as to what are all those credits which came 2 or 3 days before the cutoff date for a particular quarter, and they got reversed after 2 or 3 days. There was a huge number of such transactions. And some, as I said, they got bona fide rectified subsequently. Some didn't get rectified and they became bad accounts, and some vigilance proceedings, etc. is happening. Why I am saying this, not about that particular bank. We all have a very strong Finacle or whatever it is. Finacle may be a trade name, but a very strong core banking system. Most people say that automation is the solution for most of these frauds to be detected. Automation is the solution provided it is automated in the right sense. If you didn't provide an alert in your whatever software you provided, that if there is an entry which got reversed in a day or two, and then the account continued the same way like what it was earlier, it is possible to define this in the software language. Then you have masked or you have cheated the system. So like this, you can multiply the number of such instances. So to bring a preventive mechanism, you need to understand the system. You need to be the thief. You need to know where the system can be kind of manipulated. I'll give one more small example before I close. In one of the large public sector undertakings, it runs on SAP, and the general manager has a power to authorize payment of 10,000 rupees towards medical expenses, conveyance expenses, miscellaneous expenses. One fine gentleman, he saw the system and he found there are a lot of shortcomings. So he identified the accounts of some 5-6 retired persons whose names have not yet been disabled from the system, and in their names he sent a 6 letters, saying that I have since changed my bank account from this number to that number. So the bank accounts got incorporated in the system. Thereafter, every day, a few hundreds of such medical and miscellaneous and transport expenses in the name of each one of these persons were being put up, and either the general manager who had the key to authorize, he was in connivance, or he just shared his code with the lower employee. The fact was that within a period of 3 months, more than 1 crore 80 lakhs was drawn away these through 5 accounts. Now, we have built a system. You have a strong SAP. SAP works everywhere across the world. But you didn't have a tab there. Look here, there's a conveyance expense, and the general manager is authorized to pay conveyance expenses. But is general manager sitting in Calcutta authorized to pay the conveyance expense of an employee sitting in Trivandrum? There was no check. So that's what the smart data entry private employee, he misused. The second one, 10,000 rupees you put a cap, but is there a cap on the cap total? Individual transaction 10,000 rupees I can pass. Is there a cap on the number of such 10,000s I can pay? There was no cap. That's why he could take away in one individual's name conveyance expense every day a lakh of rupees or a couple of lakhs of rupees. So the system is as strong as you design it, and it's as weak as the others can find loopholes in that. So keeping that in mind, the need for the preventive vigilance, or what we call the bringing the standard operating procedures, is very important. I am happy that Satyamurthy ji and the Anti-Corruption Academy have identified this. Now you have identified this, the next, what is it? How do you skill? Now people have been talking about skill development of the various people. They are talking about skill development of the mason and the plumber and so many other people. What about here in this line? Most of our accountants, they are not aware of the, forensic aspects of the accounting, forensic aspects of the financial transaction. one last example and I will close. Most of you must have heard in the stock market the automated trade algorithms. You can write an algorithm and the algorithm, without you sitting there, it works on the stock market and it studies the trends and whatever it is, and ultimately you can make some money not knowing even what the stock is, etc. It is only that movement of the stock you capture, and the fraction of the second difference you have the advantage because of the algorithm pushing your trade faster than somebody else's trade, that you take an arbitrage out of it. You all heard of shell companies, and shell companies are used to put unaccounted money, illegal money, crime money through a series of such transactions, and then ultimately it ends up in the books or in the assets of somebody else. So initially people used to do it for one, so that it's difficult to find out. When investigations started becoming a little deeper, they did 3, 4, 5, 6. And the more number of such routings, it is more difficult to investigate. So a couple of young chartered accountant come IT professionals, they devised an algorithm and they defined certain routes, X, Y, Z, like that. They kind of made such a complicated routing that the moment you give them some money and you deposit in some X account and then tell them that this is where I have deposited and ultimately it is to reach this. So they have designed that in about an hour's time, by a circuitous transaction of now, because all the NEFT and RTGS money gets transferred immediately, around 200, 300 intermediaries are created. 2 to 300 intermediaries. And this has been widely used in the scam known as this long-term capital gains scam. So unless somebody who is handling the accounts, he is aware of these things, then he can't detect them, because many a time some of us may be victims. We may not be fraudsters. If the money passed through your account also in between, then you become again a victim. So these are a few things which probably we need to look at little more seriously. Particularly the financial sector, it is much easier to do these frauds. So the commission on its mandate has a lot of this killing. We have tied up with the Gujarat State Forensic University, and we are getting about nearly 3 batches of 25 people, particularly from the banking sector, who are working in the vigilance side to undergo a training of about 2 weeks each. And similarly, we also tied up with IACA, International Anti-Corruption Academy, Vienna, and we are sending about every year 2 batches of 25 people for some kind of a training. So the idea is that you prevent the crime, and to prevent the crime, you need to skill your people, and that is the strategy with which Anti-Corruption Academy is working. I am happy that they are doing this. We are willing to coordinate and cooperate with them, and we would also like to learn from them, because I have seen Mr. Satyamurthy has given a very good compilation of cases, and we will take it forward. The other attempt of the commission is that most probably the Honorable Vice President will be releasing it on 30th. We are going to open a e-learning module on our portal, where cases like this, they will be put on the website so that professionals can go through it, learn it, answer questions like what you have put here, and then thus develop some kind of a self-development. So thank you very much. Thanks for giving me this opportunity. I am sorry that I am not able to participate the whole day because of some other commitment. Thank you once again.